This week's channeled message is something new. You guys know I've been talking about the Mother of Creation, which is a new energy I've been channeling. And she's been present, especially like increasingly over the last many weeks. And this week she was ready to come out of the closet. So she's come all the way forward, and this is a message directly from her. So this is following. Maybe you guys saw I was recently had an interview on Next Level Soul where and he titled it that it was sort of like a first sharing of the Mother of Creation. So I think she just decided now is the time to shine. So welcome back to my channel, you guys. I'm so glad you are here. Thank you so much for joining me on this crazy voyage of spirit. We never know where it's going to take us. And so for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel, and I usually channel from the angelic realm. I do that by raising my awareness as high as I can go, and I connect. I go a little higher, connect, and then messages, information, and healing flow. My process for channeling the Mother of Creation is actually a little different. She actually comes in through my heart chakra, and she comes in through the back and then opens out this way. So it's a very, very different experience, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful energy. It's taken me a long time to be ready to connect with her. And I will admit, I was afraid to channel her in the beginning because she's a very, very big energy. And you might be wondering, who the heck is she? The Mother of Creation it's not another word for God. She is not God, and God is my word. So please use your word for source energy. But she is created by God, but she is the mother of all souls. So God creates life through her. So it's just like humans, we have a mother and a father. We have the Mother of Creation, and we have the Grand Central Sun, which is basically the embodiment of divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy. So she has an amazing perspective to share with us. She's very cosmic. And I talk a lot more about her in that interview with Alex, but I will be sharing more about her with you as we go through this journey together over time. So she came forward today with a message to share as kind of a handshake, an introduction to, I think, is what's probably going to be an ongoing dialogue. And I'm sure the angels will still be in here too, but today is her. And this message is, so I guess the best way for me to describe this message is, imagine if you were God, which we all are, right? A part of God. So imagine if you were God and you wanted to explore yourself, and you wanted to create aspects of yourself that would go out into the world and experience themselves so that you could then understand better about yourself, right? Pieces of yourself that would then go out and experience living, and then you could learn through them. But what happens when they die? What happens with the end of that life cycle? Do you then have to go back and recreate them over again? Is that thought finished? What you would want, if you were God having this thought experiment, is you would want something that was self-perpetuating, something that would go and live and live and live and live and live, so that in each iteration it became clearer and clearer, and learn more and more, and different aspects could develop from that original thought, right? You wouldn't want to have to come back to start from the beginning every single time that thought experiment ended. So if that was the case, what quality would you choose for your life forms as you were creating them, always under the umbrella of love, right? Would it be compassion? Would it be forgiveness? Which element underneath the umbrella of love would give you that self-perpetuating form of life? And here, the Mother of Creation tells us, what is that element that we were born with? What is it that we were created under that then created us as a self-perpetuating life form that will live and live and live and live? And I will give you the sneak preview. It is the energy of hope. So beautiful, beautiful message from the Mother of Creation. So I will go ahead and share the original channeling with you from her. And of course, she's transmitting frequency. So just let those wash over you, because it's a beautiful blessing from her. And then afterwards, we can talk it through and break down the message. So just a quick reminder, anybody who has been on the fence, or if you've been waiting to get your ticket to come to my Expand Your Heart retreat, which is coming up in end of October 24th through 26th in Seattle, here where I live. If you've been thinking about coming and waiting to get your ticket, don't wait any longer, because we really only have just a few seats left, and I would love, love, love for you to be there if you feel called. So, and it will be a deep dive with the Mother of Creation in person, which is a really, really cool experience to be able to feel her energy live in the room. So anyways, I hope you'll join me. All right, so take a deep breath. Ready? Get ready. Let's go ahead and listen to the original channeling. Blessed beings, I am with you. I will begin speaking about yourselves, who you are, and how you came to be and become. The truth of your own souls is an aspiration, a thought of hope. You are a beginning note in a great orchestra created by God for his own hearing. You are a solution to aloneness. You are an aperture, an opening into the discovery of what is all things, all oneness, all beingness. You are an avenue through which all discovers itself again. Humanity was born in the thought form of hopeful orchestration of itself. Hope begets hope begets hope. Hope is a forlorn offering at times. It is lost to itself and regains its own footing. But you are born in the element of hope. Hope has within it a perpetuation of itself. It creates an avenue through which it discovers itself. A hopeful remedy to hope is always more hope. And you are born from this, from the creative force of self-discovery through the everlasting belief in yourselves, in your ability, in your will, in the creative force that moves through you. You are hopeful. You are full of hope. And you are hope itself. The light that shines from within you is the illumination of hope. It spells a great dialogue with the eternal that says, I will again, despite what unfolds, I will hope for a better future. I will move myself into relationship with all that confronts me in an effort to perfume my world with some evidence that my hopes are fulfilled. You are this, and I am the celebration of what you are. I am the mother of all living beings that exist within this universe. I am an aperture myself, an open doorway through which the creations of the divine unfold. And from within me, hope unfolds as well, for I am hopeful for what you are to become. But I am an effervescent illumination of that which is creation, and the creation which I am unfolds through you. I create the light that unfolds your own light. I create the illuminative desire to create from within. My force of energy propels your hope into fruition and fulfillment. The hope of what you are accumulates and is endowed within the very chest of your breathing, within the very respiration of the divine light that fills you. And I come from within, from the belly, from the bones, from all that is you. The great light of creation rises and meets your hope, and you create its own fulfillment. Hopes are not always fulfilled, this is true. Hopes can diagnose themselves and say to the world, I am disappointed. I have not yet found my fulfillment. But, and this is the riddle, the hope that is lost is not forgotten, for it rises into the next new hope. You are this. You are never forgotten. You are an accumulation of beginnings and endings. You are always the recreation of yourself in inner dialogue and outer dialogue within the various roles and ways you have made for yourselves. Hope as a concept came with the human. It came for you, through you, within you. It rose between you. And now angelic force, not on a whim, angelic force does come to say hope, to speak to you, to rise within you in a moment of breath when you are least prepared to move forward. And they remind you that you are hope. They speak to you in a breath of freshness, in a breath of light, and they say to you, you will rise. Here is a new perspective. Here is a new shade you have not considered, for it may yet be possible to pursue your light, to express your light, to feel the world echo what you are more fully. I am always on the lookout for hopes unfulfilled. I am always watching for that which is discarded and thrown away and wanted no more. And these I take home to my heart space for renewal. I bring them back through the darkness, through the stillness of the all that is possible. And I bring them into the safekeeping of my void, which is infinite potential. And from within these recesses of my calm and my stillness, they find themselves through your voice and are rebirthed as yet another hopeful moment, as a new day, a new stretching, a new beginning, a new method of becoming yourselves. Thus, hope is not such a reach for you now. Hope is not so far as it has seemed. Hope is always refreshing you, beguiling you, leading you, encouraging you. It is the very breath of your existence. You are many flavors of hope. This is sure. You are many flavors of souls that have come to distinguish themselves as separate, and separation encourages more hope. You find yourselves as a many fractalized player in a great dialogue of existence. As you come apart and further and further apart into greater and greater and smaller pieces of that original soul which became to express you. But now, as the timing and the placement of your light finds itself fully expressed into shapes, into patterns of its own decisions, the world is coming to a point of contraction. And within that space, the illumination that is you shall guide itself into better recognition of what it has been. It shall guide itself into greater and greater truths of its own knowing, collecting itself, guiding itself, moving itself again and again to continue along the pathway of unity, back into the wholeness of self. This is the pathway which I lead. This is the pathway to which I belong. It is within this pathway that you will find me again. I've always been there. I've always been within you, and you have been within me. I am that energetic frequency, the pulsation of light that guides your creative power. And as you turn and face the contraction of humanity back into the fruition of its own truth, back into the healing of what has been the expression of its externality, a return to wholeness and to unity, you shall find your hope instrumental, the hope of your own internal knowledge, the trust of what has made you and what has created your hope to begin with. Faith rises with you. Faith in your ability to congeal around the concept of your truth, to draw together that which is separated, and to bring back to self that which has been forgotten. The hope of you, the capacity of you to re-emerge through merging, coming together, pieces by pieces, brought into the triumphal glare of your own illumination, sharing within yourself that you are this and that all put together again. Hopeful that with the next and the very next and the very next moment, the great guidance of your internal voice shall find its own register once more, and you shall recognize your own harmony and begin to sing triumphant the call of your own goodness. This, yes, self-love is something you'll acquire as you move forward on your journey. You shall sing your own voice with clarity, and in that voice hope rings eternal. So, yeah, so very different voice, right, from the angels. Beautiful, much more familiar, very, very loving. And this is just the first handshake. This is the first handshake from her. And I have some experience with her now, and I know she will show you more and more of her true colors as she becomes more and more familiar to you. I think she will become more and more familiar in her way of talking. So yeah, super, super cool message. You're saying hopes that are lost are not forgotten. Yes, Jennifer says, wow, absolutely. Woohoo, says Joshua. I love it. Yeah, so cool. So and beautiful to be and recognizable. Yes, I love it. Anthony says I'm floored. Awesome, so cool. Sure seems like the word congeal. It's a good word. It makes you think of, like, I don't know, stuff when you, anyways, the word congealed stuff is not usually very pretty, but it makes sense because it's like the bringing together, the thickening, right, of what we are back into, from all these different pieces of ourselves that we've been exploring, back into our wholeness, which is the path that we are currently on, right? This idea of unity. This is the shift in consciousness that we are currently on. Yeah, so let's break it down, because I think it helps, and this is a piece in this much larger context of conversation she wants to have with us. She wants to talk to us about the shift in consciousness, which the more I talk with her, the more I understand this is really about us embracing her energy, really about, and it's like, if I had to describe it or sum it up, that we have been on a path of becoming increasingly separated, like a deep inhale. Like, imagine that we as humanity has been in this process of becoming more and more and more expanded, right? Getting increasingly expanded, which means separated from our original truth, the original source that we came from, which was like the original concept of our soul. But we wanted to understand that soul even more deeply. So we wanted to break our soul apart into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. And the way I understand this idea of breaking apart into pieces, I think we talked about it last week, is think about, if you want to cook a vegetable, you're going to chop it up into super, super small pieces, because the more surface area you have on the vegetable, the faster it cooks, right? A smaller piece cooks much faster than a big piece. So if you're in a hurry, chop that veggie up really, really tiny, and it will cook way faster. So it's the same thing with our soul. It's like, okay, if I want to understand myself more deeply, I'm going to break myself apart into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, so that each piece will then go out and live a life, and then we'll learn and expand and expand and expand. Each piece expands, and then gradually we're in the process of turning around and beginning the exhale, which look how the body contracts when you do that, and how all of you comes back to yourself, right? So that is the journey we are on. We've expanded out, and think about, like, the global population has been increasing as each soul is fractionalized, right? Becomes smaller and smaller and smaller pieces, more and more and more pieces of each soul on the earth experiencing themselves. And now the exhale, we all are supposed to turn around and join back into that one unity, that one soul that we came from. So yeah, so this is the journey. And so she is saying, okay, everybody, you just turned around and welcome back. This is her journey. Like, we have been on the journey of the masculine, of the divine masculine. And now we're turning around and we're beginning the journey of the divine feminine. And so she's given us this handshake. Welcome home, she says. Welcome home. Yeah. And so if you guys want, let's break it down and talk through. I mean, I think she's easier to understand, but there's always depth we can get, and I think it just helps to take a moment, right, with the information that she shares, or that they share with us, her and the angels, because we get so much more from it. So she says, first paragraph, blessed beings, I'm with you. I begin speaking about yourselves, who you are, and how you came to be and become. The truth of your own souls is an aspiration, right? Which is like a wish, right? A thought of hope. You are a beginning tone in a great orchestra created by God for his own hearing. And I love that she's referring to the grain, like everything is frequency. Like, our soul is born into a frequency that is unique to us. Like, there's more frequencies, I think, than we could probably imagine. But we are a note, right? Humanity is a note. And then we individually, each soul is a specific note in a great orchestra created by God for his. And she uses his because it's coming through me, and that's my language. So God, I understand, is not gendered for many people. That's That's just my language. So please insert your own there instead if you prefer something else. But for his own hearing. So this is the idea that God wants to understand himself, herself, whatever. So we are each created with that idea. So you are a solution to aloneness. You are an aperture, an opening. So aperture is just another word for opening into the discovery of what is all. All things, all oneness, all beingness. You are an avenue through which the all discovers itself again. So this is really describing like why were we created in the first place? It comes from that question that God originally had, which is who am I? And the desire to discover himself. Next paragraph. Humanity was born in the thought form of hopeful orchestration of itself. Hope begets hope begets hope. Hope. And so that's that idea that if you wanted to create something that was self-perpetuating, that would live on and on and on over and over again and try itself again, hope is the ingredient that you need. Because think about it, like when you are down and ready to give up, what is it that turns you around? What is it that causes you to say, I could try again? What if you go through a really, really difficult life and you go through your life review at the end and you think, oh my God, like how did I, why did I do that? And you have all the difficult feelings. What is it that's going to inspire you to say, I could try again, as opposed to I should give up? Right? Why is it that humanity is so dang resilient, which we are? Humanity is incredibly resilient. Think about in your own life, how many restarts have you had? This whole fallacy that we have in our 20s, the idea that we're going to have like a decision and that decision is going to stick forever, like that you're going to have a career or a relationship or some of you do, some of you have lifetime relationships, but it's more common than not, right? It's more common that we don't pick a trajectory for a career and we stick with it for our whole lives, or one house that we stick in for our whole lives. So often it is this idea that we remake ourselves over and over again. I've remade myself a bunch of times. And that sometimes you think everything is all settled and finished and you've answered all of life's big questions. And then that's exactly when the rug is pulled out from underneath you and you're like, oh, okay, time to remake myself again. So what picks you up off the floor? What picks you up in your moment, in your dark night of the soul? What pulls you out of it? It's hope. It's the feeling, the belief in yourself, the faith that things could be better, which comes from that sense of hope. So that is hope begets hope, right? Hope is a forlorn offering at times. So in other words, when do we get hope? Hope comes in when we need it, which means we are forlorn, right? It is lost to itself and regains its own footing. But you are born in the element of hope. Hope has within it a perpetuation of itself. It creates an avenue through which it discovers itself. A hopeful remedy to hope is always more hope. I highlighted that one in pink. A hopeful remedy to hope is always more hope. So whenever you're in the dumper, what is the answer? That hope can re-inspire you to try again. And you are born from this creative force of self-discovery, through the everlasting belief in yourselves, in your ability, in your will, and the creative force that moves through you. And that creative force is the energy of the Mother of Creation. That is her gift to us. She is the power of creation. She tells a whole story about how she became that way. She wasn't born that way. She wasn't initially created that way. She became that way by merging with the divine central sun. So, but that's a whole nother story where she couldn't merge completely. She could only merge up to like 95%. And then there was this last piece where it's almost like her and the Grand Central Sun could never agree on these like 5 issues. And so it creates this dynamic tension between them where the two can never fully come together. There's always this area of resistance, which is what creates dynamic change. It's the area of energy that's not assigned yet, right? It's that energy that it's like two sides of a battery, that it creates conductivity and movement of energy that is allowed to flow, which is necessary for creation. If everything was settled and finished, there would be no movement, no change, no creation. So it was through this merging process that she took in the energy of the sun and became creative. And then she gives that to us when we are birthed through her. And so she births us as our original soul form, as like a song is the best way she describes it, like a song. And then we carry that song out into all of these different experiences of ourselves as we break ourselves apart into smaller and smaller pieces and have all these various lives. And then, and then at the end, at some point, we return to her for renewal, that she will sing us, integrating all these aspects of us, integrating us and returning us back to live again, to do it again. which is amazing. It's like each cycle is like a big breath, right? The exhale of breaking apart, and then the inhale of coming back together again, and then being rebirthed through her energy, which is kind of amazing. Kind of amazing. So, so then she says, in your ability, so it's faith in ourself and our ability, our will, and the creative force that moves through you. And she says, you are hopeful, you are full of hope, and you are hope itself. The light that shines from within you is the illumination of hope. So that makes me wonder about, like, the angels always tell us that they are the light of the divine and we are the spark of the divine. And I wonder if that spark is the frequency of hope. I wonder, because they've also told us that we are the frequency of change, but change and hope go right in hand, don't they? Because with hope and change, it's all about action and movement, and it's like, I bet you they're part of the same song. So, here it is. It spells a great dialogue with the eternal that says, I will again, despite what unfolds. I will hope for a better future. I will move myself into relationship with all that confronts me in an effort to perfume my world with some evidence that my hopes are fulfilled. So think about that as a driver of, like, hope is that desire, right? That to prove to yourself that you are effectual in the world, that you can create change in the world, that you can make a difference in the world, right? That you want to have some proof of it. You want to have some evidence that your hopes are fulfilled, right? And that then fuels more hope, right? And then Shelley says, I love that idea, the spark of being the frequency of hope. Yeah, me too, right? And then Christy says, I hope our capacity to feel and then share our hope with the world is a huge part of our purpose, holding the space for others who may find it difficult to feel hope. Love that, Christy. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful thought. I agree. And then she says that the angels do that later. She says that that's part of the role of the angels. So then they go, she goes on to say, you are this, we are this idea of hope. She says, and I, the mother of creation, am the celebration of what you are. I am the mother of all living beings that exist within this universe. And here is interesting side note, is she has told me that she is not the only one like her. She is just the mother of this universe, that there are other universes with other mothers. So yeah, she said she's the mother of all living beings that exist within this universe. I am an aperture, or an opening myself, an open doorway through which the creators, the creations of the divine unfold. And from within me, hope unfolds as well, for I am hopeful for what you are to become. So, and then she says, but I am an effervescent illumination of that which is creation, and the creation which I am unfolds through you. So I love this idea that she says she's a celebration of us, and that the creation which she is unfolds through us. So it's that idea, I think, that and then she says, I create the light that unfolds your own light. So this gets to the idea that, like, what is our job as a soul? Like, what is it that we're here to do? If the whole point of existing is for Source to better understand itself, if God to understand himself, if that's the goal, then, and we were created with that in mind, then our job is to express ourselves, right? Our job is to go out into the world and to be the light that we are. Our unique soul song is loud and proud as we possibly can. And then the journey is discovering all the places that we are in resistance to doing that, is finding all the places where we feel like we can't do that, or we won't do that, or we don't know how to do that, or whatever it is, where we feel like we're not allowed to do that, right? That we feel compelled to not share ourselves. And so she, with her power of creation, when we use her energy combined with ourselves, what we are doing is expressing ourselves. We're using her to create, that energy of hers to create into the world. We have our own willpower, we have our own ideas about what we want to create, and we harness the power of her which exists inside of us. Just like it's like, if imagine like you have a mom and your mom had blue eyes, and guess what? You got blue eyes, or even more, like if you ever have like my brother, when he laughs, sounds just like my dad. It's like crazy weird. Like I always kind of throws me. It's like, wait, who's in the room? Or like my kids will sometimes have this like expression that they make that I saw on their dad's face like 1,000,000,000 times. And it's a facial expression. It's not like a trait. It's literally like a gesture, nature or a way of being. And so in the same way, we got traits from the mother of creation, one of which I believe is emotions. I believe that came from her. Like she talks about it. And one of the things we got from her is this creative energy that we get to move. And it's all the things we associate with the divine feminine came from the mother of creation. And they are like traits that she passed on to us. And they are ours. She gave them to us with no reservation, just like a mom gives, a human mom. Like when you give your genes to a kid, you don't get to control the kid. You just give your genes and off they go. And it's the same for the mother of creation. But she made that as a choice, an affirmative choice to say, here you go. Have this amazing creative power, no strings attached, which is all about, like, that's why one of her key things is freedom. Like one of her key energies, the things that motivates her is freedom. And we can talk more about this. This is such a long conversation. And I want to do a weekend coming up. I want to do it, and we're going to probably do it in November, where we do a weekend just with her, where we spend time with her. We'll do healing with her, and where she can tell you more of like her whole story, because it takes time for all this to unfold. And it's super important because this is, like, we've been talking about this shift in consciousness for a long time, like since even before the 70s was all about the age of Aquarius. But even before that, right, there had been like all these prophecies and all this kind of stuff talking about this great shift in consciousness. And a lot of people agree that it is about the rise of the divine feminine. But what exactly does that mean? And is it really just about like oppressed women in the world? No, like certainly that's part of it. Like that's an outcome, right, of the repressed divine feminine, but it is not the meat of it. The meat of it is always going to be inside of us because we're creating our reality. And so she wants to help us with that because it's her energy. Like that is what we're trying to reconnect to. We've forgotten about her, basically. Like we don't even understand how to work with her energy field. Many of the things that we would consider to be like being streetwise, the things that we think of as like, how is it that you're meant to get ahead in the world? Most of these are based on ideas that are not actually working well with our own creative energy. So, and we know this, it's just that we haven't really accepted it. We don't know how to do it otherwise. So she wants to help us. She wants to show us like how to work with her energy, how to be an effective creative being in the world in a way that we learn how to manifest with her in a way that is in flow, in a way where we let go of control and resistance and all the things that we've been trained to do. So, I mean, like, think about this as an idea of understanding her, that we have, we are taught that if you're going to leave a job, you got to get the next job lined up, right? You got to jump. You cannot go from job to no job because, you'll have a hard time getting hired. You got to have, you got to show the transition from one job to the next. But that is very contrary to the way her energy works. If you want to, and that's okay if you want to stay in the same career. If you're like, I just want to do the same thing, I just want to do it somewhere else, great. Just stay in the same job and then find the next one. If you want to create something new, if you want to create a brand new position for yourself, or if you want to expand in a new way and do something you've never done before, then to use her energy, what you would do is you would leave the job and you would create a void space, a space where you're doing nothing. And where literally you're not in resistance, you're just in the space of receiving. And in that space, if you're not actively trying to create and craft and mold and control what's going to come out, because every time we control, we're creating from the past. If you just stay and be, new things will start bubbling out of that empty space. And you will create something that has never been created before. And why is this so important? It's not just because it applies to you and your career. It is because we're trying to create a brand new reality. Like, how do we create a brand new reality for ourselves? This, whatever we call 5D or the shift in consciousness or whatever we want to call it. How do we create it if we're trying to create it from the past? We can't. We have to learn how to move into the void. We have to learn how to use her energy. So she's here to try to teach us. And I know she's showing up through me. And I know she's showing up. There's a lot of people in the world right now who are channeling various aspects of her energy. So there's a lot of people channeling, Isis or Kuan Yin or like all different types of beings that are, and that, yes, they're all connected. They're all divine feminine energy. It's her energy. So, but that is why, like, why is this getting so activated right now? It's because we need it. We need it to create our future reality. We have to learn how to get into the space of stillness and not try to control what the new reality will be, which is very contrary to all of our conditioning, which says that we've got to create a plan of action, right? Which is, even in the term plan of action, it comes with the caveat, no plan survives contact with reality. Like, we know it doesn't work, but we keep doing it. We keep doing it, you guys. So yeah, so it's going to take some retraining on how do we work with our own energy. So I'm just super excited because I feel like she's very, very relatable, and she understands us. And she said it's inevitable. Like, we will get there. Like, we have turned and we're moving back towards her. And she says, like, this is her path, right? That we are moving back towards her. So we will learn how to do this. But the sooner we learn it, the easier our lives get, right? The better it becomes. We have stepped into a new energy, and the old energies are no longer, like, in the period of expansion. Like, yeah, it worked. That old type A personality worked. But now we're turning in, and it's a new energy that is what's going to get you there. And the sooner we learn to work with it, right, the better it is for us. And certainly more fun, easier. Like, who doesn't love serendipity, right? Who doesn't love being in flow? It's an amazing feeling. And that's what we're trying to learn. Yeah. So cool. Oh, Wendy's got the dates for us, you guys. The coming out party, December 6th and 7th. Yay. All right. Virtual, it'll be online. So anybody can join in on those dates. We'll get more information for you guys. But yeah, we'll spend a weekend together. It will be awesome. So, all right, super fun. So then, okay, so she says, and so she's a celebration of us, and I create the light that unfolds your own light. So this gets to that idea that we are meant to be expressing ourselves, and we express ourselves by using her energy. And so in contrast, by the way, so her energy is this creative power, but where do we plug it in? What provides the battery source for that power? That is the energy of divine masculine. So the divine masculine, the grand central sun, which is a sun that's like in the center of the universe, I guess. They had not super clear on that. I've seen him in my meditations. I've seen her and him. She's explained it to me. But there's this massive sun somewhere that she says feeds the universe with energy. And so that is what lifts us up. And then that provides the energy that we need to then, and her power, the creative power, is not the energy like in terms of like what we think of like power, like gasoline or solar power or whatever. That energy comes from the sun. Her energy is the energy of the structuring, the balancing, the energy that organizes it into form. And she learned how to do this from God, or source, if you would call it. Source energy basically taught her the structure of the universe as he wanted it to be. So gave her what we think of as like sacred geometry and the forms of nature. What will it look like? So, and I believe these are all like the sacred geometry, like the shape of the spiral, which you see in a seashell and you see in the universe. These are the structures, and they are all different frequencies, which God wanted for this particular universe. And so she creates, that is her language that she creates in. So she holds that. That is how she organizes. Because imagine, what does raw power look like without structure or form? It is just a throbbing mess of gas, right? It didn't do anything. But if you use it to harness it into structure, into a pre-decided shape or way of being, into what she would call balance and harmony, then you end up with buildings and trees and things, right? And so that's what she is. So that's how the two work together. So the grand central sun feeds us, and he takes care of us. And he is the representation of all of the beautiful masculine traits that we know and love. And she then takes that energy and puts it into form, right? Which is amazing. So yeah, super cool. So she says, where is it? She says, so she creates the light that unfolds your own light. I create the illuminative desire to create from within. And then she says, my force of energy propels your hope into fruition and fulfillment. The hope of what you are accumulates and is endowed within the very chest of your breathing, within the very respiration of the divine light that fills you. So this makes me think it is that spark, like it's related to the spark of the divine that we carry. So it's in our chest right here, like this is where we carry the spark, is in our heart, right? It's in the chest, right? And so we accumulate. It's like an energy of hope, right? That we're building and building and building. What are we going to do with it? So then she says, okay, then with the very respiration of the divine light that fills you, so every breath in and out, right? We're adding more and more hope. And then she says, and I come from within, from the belly and the bones. In other words, and then just from all that is you. So in other words, she's she created us just like we have the DNA of our parents, we have the DNA of her that's literally part of our embodiment. So she says, I come from within you, from your belly, from your bones, from all that is you. The great light of creation rises and meets your hope, and you create its own fulfillment. So this is how we take that energy of the divine and we send it out into the universe to become something. Hopes, she says, are not always fulfilled, and this is true. Hopes can diagnose themselves and say to the world, I am disappointed. Ooh, sad hope. I have not yet found my fulfillment. But this is the riddle, she says. The hope that is lost is not forgotten. Right? So awesome. For it rises into the next new hope. Right? So, and so hope is the remedy for lost hope. So we find our hope. If we have a hope that was disappointed, right? Then we find new hope and we try again, which is amazing. Yeah, essentially she recycles hope, exactly. And then she says, you are this, you are never forgotten. So all of your wishes, all of your dreams, never forgotten. She says, you are an accumulation of beginnings and endings. You are always the recreation of yourself in an inner dialogue and outer dialogue. So like learning within, experience yourself in the outside world, within the various roles and ways that you have made for yourselves. So hope as a concept came with the human. It came for you, through you, within you. So I don't know if this means that other beings are not made in the same frequency of hope. Maybe they are. I don't know, but I know we are. She says we are. It rose between you. And now, angelic force, not on a whim, angelic force does come to say hope, to speak to you, to rise within you for a moment of breath when you are least prepared to move forward. So in other words, and the angels have said this before, and this reminds me of an old message it's probably from 4 or 5 years ago from the angels when they talked about one of the ways they help us. And that is when we are really, really down, especially they come, like imagine that you are in like your dark night of the soul and you're stuck in one of those really negative thought forms where you just keep thinking about something that bums you out and you just cannot seem to get it out of your head, right? Like maybe you've just gone through like a really bad thing at work or a really bad thing in your relationship and it just keeps and you just cannot get it out of your head, just over and over and over again. And that is when the angels can come in, when you're just stuck in that thought process, and they will whisper in a breath of hope. And they said that is one of the ways that they will lift you. And it'll be like almost for just a moment, it's like all of a sudden the clouds clear and you see, oh, well, maybe there is a way out of it. And it's up to us to sustain that, right? To then let it blossom. So it's easy for us to then kind of sink back into our goo if we're not careful. But that is one of the ways they help us, is they can help lift us even for a moment out of depression, out of those negative thought patterns. So, and so really, really cool that she's referencing that here about that old message from the angels, is that is one of their gifts, is to breathe hope back to us, which it makes so much sense now. I understand it, because the angels have always said that they reflect us back to ourselves. So that's what they're doing, is they're reflecting that hope, that vibration back to us. So they say the angelic force does come and say hope, to speak to you, to rise within you in a moment of breath when you are least prepared to move forward. And they remind you that you are hope. So yeah, wow, that just ties together several things in my mind. That's so cool. Then she says, they speak to you in a breath of freshness, in a breath of light. And they say to you, you will rise. Here is a new perspective. Here is a new shade you've not considered. For it may yet be possible to pursue your light, to express your light, to feel the world echo what you are more fully. So that's really that idea, that little breath of inspiration, of hope, of the feeling that something else is possible, right? So cool. So next paragraph, she says, I'm always on the lookout for hopes unfulfilled. I'm always watching for that which is discarded and thrown away and wanted no more. So her energy is like the energy of renewal. Like she takes, and it makes sense. Like think about what we think about in the earth, that when things die, like we think of things become decomposed and they return to the earth, and then new things can be generated from that. And that is kind of her role, is that she literally, and she said before that she kind of is constantly on the lookout for anything that is dying, that is dead. She brings it back to herself and then renews that energy and brings that energy back into the world in a new way. And so she does it with our hopes, with our unfulfilled, with our hopes that die, right? She then can draw them back into herself. And I don't think that means that like it has to go all the way back to wherever she is. I think that energy is inside of us, that it is her energy that she's referring to that is inside of us, that when our hopes die, we bring that back into her energy and we're able to rebirth them into renewal and to come up with new hope, right? To find new hope from the old, in the same way that you grow, in my garden, it's getting to be fall now and things are decomposing. Things are starting to die back. And then I know that, you compost, you put that, that compost, and then that then feeds next year's plantings. And it's that idea, that void space of infinite potential where our old hopes go to die and then become the fodder for the next new hope. So, and she says, I take these home to my heart space for renewal. I bring them back through the darkness, through the stillness of the all that is possible, which is that infinite potential. And she says, and I bring them into the safekeeping of my void, which is infinite potential. So one of the things I love about this, the understanding that's happening with her energy, with what is the divine feminine, is that for so long we were told that divine feminine energy is the energy of receiving. And it always felt really passive. There was always that, it was like right on the border of like powerlessness, which just kind of sucked. You know what I mean? Like, this is a sucky definition for the divine feminine. Like, especially as a woman, like I don't want to be that in that like, oh, waiting for life to happen to me. You know, like, that's kind of sucky. Like, and she's not that. Like, she is incredibly active. But the way and this is the difference. It's not just about receiving and waiting for something to be given to you. Like, that is not her energy. Her energy is creation, right? It is the making of things. But the way she works with her energy is so important to understand. And yes, she receives. Absolutely, she receives. But it is not a state of like receiving like we think of it, which is standing in there with your arms open. So it is the absence of resistance, and that's very, very different. So when we'll go into this on the weekend I'm talking about, because I could talk with you guys for hours. I've already like trying to explain this stuff. It's a whole, like I said, it's a new way of working with energy, a different way of understanding. And I want to give it time because I want us to be able to kind of explore these themes and let them sink in, because it's important, you guys. It's important. Yeah. So, because this is where we're headed, which is so cool. So yeah, but her energy is anything but passive. Yeah, she's very, very active, and it's all about movement and change and infinite potential. Think about the power of that. Infinite potential is what she manages, is what she offers us. The power of to create anything from her energy. So yeah, and that is the depth, the stillness, that it is that deep. It's like going back into raw materials where you could make anything with it. And that's her. So cool. So then, and then she says, and from within these recesses of my calm and my stillness, they find themselves through your voice and are rebirthed as yet another hopeful moment. These are the hopes, hope, finds itself as renewed. And then she says, as a new day, a new stretching, a new beginning, a new method of becoming yourselves. Thus, hope is not such a reach for you now. Hope is not so far as it has seemed. Hope is always refreshing you, beguiling you, leading you, encouraging you. It is the very breath of your existence. Next paragraph, she says, you are many flavors of hope. This is sure. She says, you are many flavors of souls that have come to distinguish themselves as separate. And separation encourages more hope. You find yourselves as a many fractalized player in a great dialogue of existence as you come apart and come apart and further apart, which is what we've been doing, right? Breaking apart into smaller and smaller pieces. She says into greater and greater and smaller pieces of that original soul which became to express you. So this has been the inhale, right? Stretching out our arms as far as we could to try to experience ourself in as many pieces as possible. And then she says, but now, as the timing and the placement of your light finds itself fully expressed into the shapes, into the patterns of its own decisions, interesting choice of words, because she does not control, even though she is that energy of creation, she and nobody else controls how we become. Nobody else designs our lives for us. it's our decisions, our choices as our higher self decides what we're going to become and what lives we're going to have and all this kind of stuff. So we are now at the stage, she's saying in this paragraph, where we have, as humanity, has become fully expressed into shapes, into patterns of our own decisions. She says now the world is coming to a point of contraction. So we have turned at the edge of the inhale, getting ready to turn and begin our exhale, to return back to ourselves. And she says, and within that space, the illumination that is you, which is your higher self, shall guide itself into better recognition of what it has been. So this is the process of reintegration of all those little pieces. And then she says, it shall guide itself into greater and greater truths of its own knowing, collecting itself, guiding itself, moving itself again and again to continue along the pathway of unity, back into the wholeness of self. And then she says, this is the pathway which I lead. She's very happy about that because we've been on the pathway of the divine masculine expansion. And now we're back on her path, which is the pathway of unity and integration. And then she says, this is the pathway to which I belong. It is within this pathway that you will find me again. So learn to work with her energy again, right? I've always been there. I've always been within you, and you have been within me. I am that energetic frequency, the pulsation of light that guides your creative power. And next paragraph, she says, and as you turn and face the contraction of humanity back into the fruition of its own truth, back into the healing of what has been the expression of its externality. So, and what does she mean? And then she says, return to wholeness and unity, you shall find your hope instrumental. So what she means by this, as you turn and face the contraction of humanity, which is turning around and beginning the exhales, we begin to contract all these pieces we've expressed ourselves in. We're getting to collect all of these, and we can collect them in this life, right? In our life, the whole healing of soul convergence, which many of you have done, and you understand that the process is one in which we go back and we find all the pieces of ourself that we are in resistance to, that are not unified, that we're not connected to now, that we've pushed away, and we bring them back home and we allow them to be inside of us, right? We allow, it's like we stop denying these pieces of ourselves. And by doing that, we become internally unified. So this is the process, and that is the main reason why this is the only lifetime that humanity has ever had where we have full access to our Akashic records, to like all of the history of all of our lives, because this is the one where we're meant to start to integrate them all. And when we do that, we then become like connected, right? Internally harmonized, and we connect to our higher self. So this is the process. So she says, and so we turn and we begin this contraction back into the fruition of your own truth. Our own truth is the acceptance of all these experiences, everything we've ever said, done, felt, everything that's ever been done to us, the things that we wish didn't happen or we wish we didn't say. Those are the pieces we're trying to finally allow to come back to us, to allow back into our heart. So, and that is our truth, right? That's the truth she's talking about. Back into the healing of what has been the expression of its externality, right? What we've experienced in the external world. A return to wholeness and unity. You shall find your hope instrumental. So this is not an easy process, and having our hope, right, is helping us to go through the difficult moments in this process of healing and integration. Then she says, the hope of your own internal knowledge, which is knowing ourselves, right? This process of healing. She says, the trust of what has made you and what has created your hope to begin with. Faith rises with you. Faith in your ability to congeal around the concept of your truth, right? It is that concept of just starting to collect yourself back, all these pieces back to one. To draw together that which is separated and to bring back to the self that which has been forgotten. So, and that's all the pieces of ourself that we've forgotten, right? The hope of you, the capacity of you to re-emerge through merging, right? Such a cool sentence right there. We're going to re-emerge through merging, because we really are we're collecting ourselves, and through that process we are learning about ourselves, and our soul is growing. That was the whole reason we did it in the first place. Why would we break ourselves apart into so many pieces? The point was to learn, and the learning is called healing. The healing means we collect all these pieces and we allow ourselves to feel. So the learning isn't here, it's here. The heart is the only thing that matters. The brain like kind of goes away, right? The brain is like part of the body. It's not as much important. It's super important for our life while we're alive, but the heart is the thing that travels with us. And so the learning is allowing us to feel the feelings and letting those expand our capacity for more and more love. That's the point. So, we say learning, but it's really healing is what we're talking about. And healing is learning about ourselves by feeling our feelings. So, and we do that by merging, right? By collecting all these pieces, coming together, pieces by pieces, brought into the triumphal glare of your own illumination. So it's like in our own, like seeing it, really the triumphal glare is like, it's nothing escapes us at this point. We're seeing all parts of ourselves. Nothing escapes us. Sharing within yourself that you are this and that, right? All put together again. That's kind of the idea there, that you're this and you're that. Yeah. Next paragraph. Hopeful that within the next and the very next and the very next moment, which again is how she teaches us. She teaches us by experience. It is that idea that's how hope works. Hope works where you might hope that as you're trying to get that parking spot and you turn down the street and you think, oh, at the next street, and then you turn again. Okay, the next street, and then you turn again. Okay, this street. That's hope. Right? So she uses this as an idea. She teaches us through experience, the hopeful that within the next and the very next and the very next moment, that great guidance of your eternal voice shall find its own register once more. So this is that integration where we finally connect. We integrate all the pieces of ourselves and we connect to that higher self. She says, and you shall recognize your own harmony and begin to sing triumphant the call of your own goodness. So that is what this healing does, is it connects us to self-love. When we are not in self-love, all that means is that we are repressing aspects of ourself, experiences that we've had, things that have been done, things that we've said, all of that we are in resistance to pieces of ourself. And when we finally allow them all to come back to us, and we acknowledge and we witness and we perceive ourselves fully and we allow ourselves to have had those experiences and love ourselves anyways, right? That is self-love. So she says, yes, self-love is something you'll acquire as you move forward on your journey. You shall sing your own voice with clarity, and in that voice, hope rings eternal. So beautiful message, really, really beautiful message. And I think it's just a super helpful, really an introduction for us as if in terms of the Friday messages, a true introduction to the Mother of Creation, a handshake, like a very loving hug from her to let us know a little bit about her, a little bit about us, a little bit about what we are. Yeah, and such a cool message of hope, right? So hopeful. Such a hopeful message. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for spending the day together, for this wonderful message we shared, for all the energy you bring. It makes such a difference. It really does. I know for myself that I feel like I come to much better understandings of this because of the energy that we're sharing and how the message unfolds as we go through it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will see you guys next Friday live. Bye-bye, you guys.